One summer morning, I was making my way outside of the house through the back patio to the pool. And I stopped on the top step leading into the pool, and the water felt just a little bit cool around my feet. And when I first feel that, sometimes it makes me want to step back out because the water feels a little chilly. I noticed the air was warm around me and I could feel a breeze on my skin. But I stood on that top step with the water pooling around my feet. And I always have that few seconds where I think, am I just going to plunge in or am I going to back out? But I did plunge in. I always have my arms up and I just go down in the water. And there's something about the water just enveloping your body when you jump into the water. And I feel myself slice through that water and come up close to the other end of the pool. And my habit is, when I'm working out, is to make a circuit around the deep end. And I just run in a circle in the water, and I keep going around and around. And after a few minutes, I go back and I go around in the other direction. But this morning, something was a little different. I could hear the birds singing, and as I started my circuit, there's always this wake that starts. And I'm in the water, and I see kind of a wave following me as I go around, and I just continue to circle. And this morning, I noticed there were some leaves and a couple of pecans from the tree that had dropped into the water, and they just joined me on my circle. And they easily just came in, and I kind of watched them. Every once in a while I would grab one of the leaves and look at it as I'm making my circuit, but I'm still aware of the water and how it feels. It's up to my neck, and I'm just enveloped in this, what I felt was living water. And as I progressed my circuit, I could just feel the water supporting me. And I felt buoyed and carried. And even though I'm doing the work and running through the water and moving my arms, it just got easier and easier the more I kept in the flow. And the flow just kept moving with me. And every once in a while, I would kind of put an arm outside of that flow, and I would feel that tension in the water. And things got harder. And I noticed when I turn around and I go back in the other direction, there's so much more work. I can barely catch my breath. I have to work harder to keep that flow and to make the flow go in the opposite direction. But this morning, it was just miraculous. There's something about that moment in time when you know you're in the flow and you feel supported and you're just enveloped in it, and it felt like it was over my head and under my feet. And at times I wasn't even aware of my feet moving on the bottom of the pool. And it was just the flow. And it was just easy. And things would flow in and things flowed out. And I just kind of watched them. And I was still aware that at some point, if I ventured out of that flow, that things got tense. And I would feel the strain, and I would feel the amount of work it took just to stay even on the periphery of that flow. And yes, there was this feeling of sacredness in that flow, continuously moving. And the more I circled in that same direction and stayed in that flow, the more I was supported. The stronger the flow felt, the less I had to work. The more appreciation I had for the living water around me. And I realized that it was the flow that directed things in for me and out for me. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to push things out. I didn't have to grab things in. Whatever was for me in that moment just got in the flow. Just got in the flow. And I thought, what if we were always aware of the flow of life? That flow that I believe is God. So we talk about divinity, the divinity within, the divinity that we are, but are we aware that there's this flow, that there's this, what Greg Braden calls the divine matrix? A lot of people are now using the word vortex, where they're aware of this surrounding goodness, the surrounding support and strength, that when we're aware of it, when we know we're in the flow, everything is just graceful and elegant and easy. The flow. And divinity as flow. Flow as divinity. And as we continue with the talks about the words that we have each chosen, today is divinity. And someone else wrote the words all, and us, and you. This oneness that was talked about in the video. Sue chose the word divinity. Actually, she said the word chose her. And it took a little bit of time for her to accept it. I think divinity's always calling us into the flow. Into the flow. Just come home. Come here. Seek first the kingdom. Be in the flow. It can be easy. It can be elegant. Everything that you need will flow in with you. Things you don't need will flow out when it's time for them to flow out. You know, there were times when I was in that water and all of a sudden the things that were flowing around me suddenly were not there. I wasn't aware of their moving out until all of a sudden I looked and thought, look at there. So there is this flow, and so we can easily fold in this other word, awareness, which is Jerry's word. I'm taking a class right now called Self-Awareness. And what we talk about every week is, are we aware of this flow, this vortex, the matrix that we're in, the one that connects us like all the light bulbs, the same energy flowing in and out, holding us, this omnipresence, the omniscience, the omnipotence, that if we'll just clue in and stay in that flow, it can all be elegantly wonderful. Stay in the flow. This is another one of Eric Butterworth's books, In the Flow of Life. He says, place yourself in the middle of the stream, says Emerson, that's Ralph Waldo Emerson, and you will be impelled without effort to a, quote, right and perfect contentment, unquote. This stream of life is the only reality. Knowing that you are in the flow of this stream is the basis for faith and the key to the only kind of security you can ever know. And this stream that flows from within you has no other intent except to flow through you and as you. Isn't that wonderful? And this stream that flows from within you has no other intent except to flow through you and as you. This is why Jesus said that it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. On this next page, the practice of the presence of God is an insight that has been inspiring to many. However, its full implication is rarely caught or taught. The presence of God is the activity of God that is present in you and as you. Thus, to practice the presence means to practice thinking that you are surrounded by the divine presence that wishes you well because you are expressing its life. That takes my breath away. The flow of life is the very nature of God and the natural experience of humankind. The natural experience of our lives. If we're only aware. So the flow is there, but sometimes we venture out because we say, I've got this. I can do this. I don't need God to govern my finances. I can find my own relationship. This problem I have at work, I got this. I'm just going to white knuckle it through, make this work. I've white knuckled things for so long in my life. And it was just rough. Just rough. And it was unfortunately something that usually brought me to my knees to make me surrender and move back in the flow. Why do we have to be brought to our knees? It's not necessary because the flow is there waiting for us to just plunge in and submerge in and go with the flow. Immerse ourselves in the stream, because when you're standing with just your feet in, it doesn't feel so good. You just stick your toe in and say, oh, I'm doing this God thing. Kind of spiritual. I'm going to meditate, once or twice a week. Don't have time for it today. I got other better things to do. Yeah, don't we always think we got better things to do? But if we surrender it all and just plunge in yet again, I've been thinking lately about what would it take, what kind of practices do I need to have in my life to stay in the flow? To stay in the flow. Because there's too much right now that's knocking me off center. And it shouldn't have to be that way. The lessons that come and kind of knock us over and bat us about a little bit. If we're in the flow, we see it, we recognize it, we can appreciate it as a lesson, and just keep right on in the flow. And say, okay, I'm in the flow. Just like the Daily Word said, you let go of the intellectual mind and give yourself over to divine mind and the wisdom therein. And just let it go. Stop the fight. I fought for everything in my life. Until I realized there was this flow, and I could be a part of it. Just go. Let that buoy you and support you and float you through whatever crisis is coming. Accept that manna from heaven. Yes. Because it's raining down upon us all the time. But we're busy somewhere else, fixing our own spiritual food, fixing something that we think is going to fill that void. And we just have to return to this. You're going to see my arm doing this all week. Return to this. Wax on, wax off. The flow that is God, that that surrounds us all the time, just like gravity, just like air that we breathe, the breath. And we're going to segue from this flow, into next week, talking about abundance and giving. Because that flow is our abundance. Everything that we've ever needed or wanted is in that flow. Everything. Everything. Absolutely everything. The peace you've wanted. The financial abundance you've wanted. The love you've craved. Fulfillment in work. Rest and relaxation. All the desires of your heart are in the flow. The root of the word affluence is about flow, about movement, currency. The current is about movement. Yes. Therein is everything. All the riches of life are in that flow. There's that other statement I heard lately. I think it was on Facebook I saw it. Or somebody told it to me, that God hasn't finished rewriting our story. Stop grabbing the pencil back. So we let some things go. They say, oh, no, I got that one. I'm taking that back. I'm not putting that in the flow. I'm not taking that with me. Because I surely have that figured out. And sometimes we do, but what I've noticed is when I let the flow surround me and I submerge myself in it, it always turns out infinitely better than I could have made work. Always. Always. The flow is our divinity. So it's not just within us. Yes, it certainly is. But it surrounds us. And there's order to it. Every single thing that we see and experience has some order to it in the great divine, in that divine realm. That energy that is us, that moves through us. There are no mistakes. And sometimes when we're fighting our hardest against what is, are the times that if we let go, I think our greatest miracles, our greatest insight, our greatest learning can happen, our greatest opportunities for manna from heaven. So do you want the flow? I kind of like that. Do you like it? And once you're in it, it just raises you up. And you're supported beyond anything you've ever experienced before. And yes, the more you're in it, the longer you stay in, the more you're lifted. All those things that used to knock you over before, you just kind of flow in and out, in and out. So let's expand our concept of divinity. To think of it, yes, surely as the air we breathe, of all the gifts that we receive, all the abundance that flows into our lives, because it's surely there, we just don't always see it. Our awareness gets skewed. We got blinders on. We get hyper-focused, usually to our problems. But all around us, there's something happening. I feel like I'm in the Matrix now. It's always there. It's always there. It always has been, always will be, if we will just take the blinders off and step back into the water and then just dive in. Living water is always there. When the going gets tough, you don't even have to make the flow happen. You just lay back and you float. Well, you know that story about footprints, called Footprints? And the man's wondering what happened, where did you go? And he said, those are the days when I carried you. Yeah. The flow carries us always. If we'll just lay back in it. Because the flow's there, and you'll just float in the flow. You'll stay in the flow. The more you give yourself to it, the easier it is. The more graceful life is.
Surrender to the flow.
Surrender to the flow. What if we affirmed every day that my life is full of grace and ease? Every time you wake up, I just want to be a part. I'm in this grace and ease that is already here. I just need to acknowledge it, open my eyes to it. So let's stay in the flow.
You know, this whole week I've been reading on you know, miscreating,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and, you know, it says that before you miscreate, that you should just talk to your dad and just say, hey, you know, this is what's going on and whatever, and then that's that deal. That's how you, I mean, it's so neat how you said that, because that's like getting back into his flow. You know, he won't give you a miscreation.
That's right.
You know, he will give you the correct creation for your life too.
So when you feel yourself coming out of it, out of the flow, when you lose your focus, when you you're no longer laying back in the flow, and you're standing up trying to go in the other direction, push your way through, just let go. Yes, just ask.
Yeah. Reach out your hand and your daddy's got you.
Yeah.
It's like the little song, row, row, row your boat.
Gently down the stream. Yes.
Stephen Lane Taylor wrote a whole book around that. You know,
Mm.
rowing your boat gently
Oh, yeah.
down the stream.
And also the power versus force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of going this way, but
Yeah.
instead, yeah.
Gently down the stream.
Very, very.
Rivers always flow from the source.
Life is but a dream.
That's right.
Life is but a dream. Yes.
How neat.
Nothing but a dream.
Of course, a miracle.
Yeah, the strength of water when it's going with the flow. It only goes with the flow. Only goes with the flow. Yes.
And Jesus saying, I have come that they might have life and have it abundantly.
Have it abundantly.
It's so simple. It's so simple.
It's laid at our feet.
We make it so hard.
It's laid at our feet. And yet we still choose to white knuckle it some days. So let's just be here.
That's right.
In the flow. Stay in the flow.
Don't force anything.
There's no reason to force it. Yes. The flow of life, that is our divinity. Already there. It's working whether we realize it or not. Whether we give ourselves to it or not. It's already there. Let's take this in a meditation. Take a deep breath. Just still your mind. Open your heart just a little bit more and ask, what do I need to let go of? How can I submerge myself in the flow? Ask Spirit, ask the Creator, what are you calling me to right here, right now? What I need to let go of so I can step off of that first step with only my feet in the water and jump in. Feel that water, that living water submerge you. And closing over your body. Lifting you up as you float to the water's surface. Just let go. Let your fingers loosen. Stop white knuckling it. And as you relax in the flow, and as you let it carry you through life, lift you, support you, nothing but grace and ease is present. Challenges, problems, pain, grief, sorrow flows in, flows out easily, almost as if magically. But we live and breathe this magic all the time. Peace is there all the time. Love, abundance, joy, breath and life is always there. Let's just have some silence together now, waiting to hear what do we need to let go of, or what perhaps do we need to be in order to be more in the flow, to stay in the flow. And just breathe. Just breathe. Continue to breathe deeply. Just feel the peace. Peace in the room. Peace in your body. Peace that is you. Peace of God that flows through you. This grace and ease, this peace that you feel now is yours always when you stay in the flow. Let's stay in the flow. Let's take a couple of deep breaths together. Breathe in. One heart, one mind. Exhale. Breathe in again, deeply. Hold it for a second. Exhale. One more time, take it in. Exhale. And when you're ready, let's return to the room.